And then Friday, we see Federal Reserve accelerates Treasury purchases to address market strains. Central bank cites highly unusual disruptions in Treasury market as pandemic pressures go. Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And wow, what a wild week in the financial markets. Before we get started, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell right there at the bottom of your screen so you can stay posted, because we will be covering you through some unusual times. And wow, I mean, wouldn't say it started with Thursday, but on Thursday, Fed injects 1.5 trillion in a bid to prevent unusual disruptions in markets. What I found interesting about this was that they did reference the Treasury market, which is just somewhat concerning. Anytime you hear problems with liquidity in the Treasury market, especially with all the money that appeared to be flocking into the Treasuries. Although what perhaps was even a little more concerning, this was Thursday, and then Friday we see Federal Reserve accelerates Treasury purchases to address market strains. Central bank cites highly unusual disruptions in Treasury market as pandemic pressures go. So this is what people are counting on to be the safe haven. Obviously, we talk plenty on the channel here about whether you should be looking at a U.S. Treasury of the most indebted nation entity in the history of finance as the safe haven, while gold and silver get pummeled. Yet, nonetheless, that's what's happening. And here, the Fed announced Friday morning that it would purchase later in the day roughly half of some 80 billion in Treasury securities that it had said Thursday would be purchased over the next month. So, again, I don't by any means think the Fed's giving us the full story here, but just alarming that even a day later, the schedule had to be ramped up. Keep in mind, it was interesting. The Fed delivered the $1.5 trillion on Thursday, and the markets barely moved. And certainly, you know, the stock market was up quite a bit on Friday, but it just makes you wonder if we're now dosing out 1.5 trillion QE packages, and that barely gets the radar going. I think somewhere in here they mentioned the Fed has, a meeting. I think they're just trying to hold down the fort until next Wednesday. Who knows what will happen between now and then, but probably a good chance of more action. But I mean, we've heard for years that other countries were walking away from U.S. Treasuries. Saw the China develop the petro yuan a couple of years back. Certainly unfortunate if it takes a pandemic for any of these to be further exposed yet. We will keep an eye on that and see what happens as this goes forward. Few other quick stories worth noting here on CNBC. Grocers limit food purchases, urge shoppers not to hoard. Kroger ramps up hiring, which is interesting because while certainly you don't want to have a pandemic to set these things off, that I have wondered, you know, if we have life on the other side of the dollar, does it have to be complete Armageddon? Or do you see here where there is demand for help in areas around food and labor will shift there? Maybe instead of people like me who go to Wall Street in their 20s, we'll go to farms and help get the food to people. You know, just interesting seeing how quickly life is changing for us all. One thing they mention is not hoarding. Now, certainly I get it. You know, I'm a silver investor, so familiar with the hoarder mentality. Yet to the degree, hopefully just being kind to your neighbor in these trying times, good thing to keep in mind. So get what you need. Try not to take the supply of toilet paper until eternity. Although interestingly, certainly for gold and silver investors, not the easiest of weeks, although what I am seeing here and have seen in a bunch of places, due to extreme volumes, please expect shipping delays of 5 to 10 business days. Also have a temporary minimum order, and they were saying that they've just seen such an uptick. But with a 3 to 5 time increase in order volume, we were unable to answer our phones. So they're getting a lot of orders. I had Andy Scheckman of Miles Franklin on the show last week, who mentioned he was getting a lot of orders here. This is Bullion Star out of Singapore. Supply squeeze. Bullion Star has supply relations with most of the major refineries, mints, and wholesalers around the world. Most of our suppliers don't have any stock of precious metals and are not taking orders currently. The U.S. Mint, for example, announced just this Thursday that Silver Eagle coins are sold out. The large wholesalers in the U.S. are completely sold out of all gold and all silver and are not able to replenish. Last I heard, Andy Scheckman of Miles Franklin did still have inventory, although what he mentioned to me in one of our recent conversations was how when there have been supply chain issues, usually it's been the premiums on Silver Eagles and Maple Leafs, which he has seen go up. Again, now has demand completely overwhelmed supply to the point where we have some sort of bigger move forced in the markets? Probably not yet, but certainly these would be the conditions that, geez, at least you'd ideally expect to happen before that occurs. So obviously, we'll be keeping you posted here at Arcadia Economics, where we're always looking for things like that in the silver market. I guess I'll have to rush to get that book out. By the way, for everyone who has ordered the book, thank you for your kind support. That's my upcoming book, The Big Silver Short, which is in the description below. Having someone doing a final proofread, and I'm going to see if I can get the Audible, or maybe it'll just be a regular audio version, available in the next week or two. Obviously, this is the time the whole thing was prepared for. So, again, if you were watching the price of gold and silver and your mining shares these past couple of weeks, by all means, I get it. I sympathize. I'm living it too. But is interesting, as the prices have gotten hammered, we're seeing a lot of buying in the physical market. And it looks like we'll be having Andy Scheckman on almost weekly now to keep you posted on that. So anyway, just hope you're all doing well out there, staying safe. Maybe don't give your neighbor a hug, but remember, the one thing we can control is how we treat each other during these times. So with that said, have a great weekend. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll keep you posted.